There's a strange truth no one tells you. Sometimes, the moment you stop caring so much, everything begins to work. The people chasing validation don't get it. The ones overthinking every move go nowhere. The ones clinging to what they're afraid to lose end up pushing it away. But those who let go, who lean into stillness, who stop forcing what isn't theirs to control, something shifts. It's not indifference, it's clarity. It's peace that comes from knowing you're no longer trying to win a game you never wanted to play. Michel de Montaigne, philosopher, skeptic, and quiet master of the inner world, lived by one guiding principle: I want to see the world through myself, not myself through the world. This video is not about giving up. It's about giving in to something quieter, more honest. It's about the power of letting go, and what happens when you stop caring about what doesn't matter so you can finally live what does. Most people don't realize this, but when you care too much, you're not free. You're bound to expectations, bound to image, bound to outcomes that are outside your control. You think your effort is noble, that your worry shows commitment, that your constant emotional investment will finally make things click. But Montaigne would ask, what if your tension is the thing holding you back? Because the more you need something, the more power it has over you. You want to be liked? You'll twist yourself for approval. You want to be successful? You'll obsess over results and miss the process. You want to be seen? You'll end up invisible because you're performing, not living. And in chasing control, you lose the very thing you're trying to protect: your authenticity. Michel de Montaigne was not a conqueror or a saint. He was a flawed man, curious, honest, endlessly human. And his superpower, he wasn't trying to be anything else. We are, I know not how, double in ourselves, he wrote, so that what we believe, we disbelieve, and cannot rid ourselves of what we condemn. He didn't preach perfection. He practiced awareness. Instead of chasing self-improvement to escape himself, he sat with what was real. He saw that most people suffer not because of life, but because they are always trying to be more than they are, to fix what isn't broken, to prove what doesn't need defending. But when you can sit in your skin without shame, without needing to fix yourself for others, you stop struggling with the river and begin to float. That's when life starts to arrange itself around you. There's a difference between letting go and giving up. Letting go is not apathy. It's not carelessness. It's not resignation. It's understanding that obsession creates resistance. You still act. You still love. You still show up. But you stop trying to control the outcome. You stop attaching your worth to results. You stop clinging to the approval of people who never saw you clearly. Montaigne believed that when we stop fighting with what is, we return to who we are. My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, he wrote, most of which never happened. We suffer more in anticipation than in reality, more in imagination than in action. But when you detach, you enter presence, and in presence, life unfolds naturally. People gravitate to you, opportunities appear, ideas flow, because you're no longer chasing, you're becoming. Think about it. You've met someone who tries too hard. They want to be liked, to be accepted, to be noticed. And that need, it's repelling. Now think of someone grounded. They aren't trying to impress. They speak slowly, act with clarity, stay quiet when others rush to fill space. They don't need to prove themselves, and that makes them magnetic. This is the paradox Montaigne understood. Those who are most admired are the ones who stopped performing, because performance is tension, it's exhausting. It's untrustworthy. But presence? Presence is power. When you stop caring how you're seen, you start showing up as someone worth seeing, and people can feel the difference. Here's the final gift of detachment: clarity. When you stop caring about what doesn't matter, you finally see what does. You stop spending your energy on meaningless conversations. You stop chasing attention from people who drain you. You stop measuring your life by numbers, applause, or performance. Instead, you start creating from depth. You start speaking with honesty. You start listening to the voice inside you that's been drowned out by noise. Montaigne lived this way. He withdrew from public life not to escape, but to observe, to think, to be. And from that silence, his words reached across centuries, not because he forced them, but because they came from truth. Most of what holds you back isn't the world. It's the weight you've given to other people's opinions. What if they think I'm selfish? What if they don't like what I say? What if I disappoint someone? But Montaigne would ask, so what? Why should someone else's perception of you outrank your own truth? I care not so much what I am in the opinion of others, he wrote, as what I am in my own. He understood something most never do, that peace doesn't come from being admired. It comes from being aligned, and alignment often requires you to release the performance, to stop shaping your life around assumptions you can't control. Because other people's thoughts, they are projections, not truth. And the moment you stop chasing their approval, you start becoming undeniable. What does it mean to be sovereign? It means you are no longer ruled by external forces. You don't need everyone to agree. You don't require constant reassurance. You don't flinch when someone misunderstands you. You are clear in yourself, and that clarity is untouchable. This was Montaigne's quiet genius. He didn't try to conquer the world. He conquered himself. I study myself more than any other subject. That is my metaphysics. That is my physics. He turned inward not to escape the world, but to become solid enough to face it without collapsing. And from that solid place, he could move through life with ease. No scrambling, no defending, no bending over backwards to earn acceptance. Just presence, just truth, and the grace that follows when you stop gripping so tightly. We live in a culture obsessed with control. Control your schedule, control your image, control your future, control how others see you. But Montaigne knew, the more you chase certainty, the more confused you become. Because life isn't a clean formula. People are unpredictable. Feelings shift. The future won't follow your spreadsheet. So what happens when you try to control the uncontrollable? You suffer. But when you surrender the chase, when you stop needing everything to make sense, you enter clarity. You begin to trust your timing. You let things unfold. You make decisions from calm, not panic. And ironically, it's from that state that things often begin to work, not because you forced them, but because you got out of the way. Stillness isn't passive. It's not laziness. It's not checking out. It's power that doesn't waste energy. It's what happens when you no longer flinch at discomfort, when you stop seeking noise to distract from silence, when you can sit with uncertainty and still remain steady. Montaigne's writings weren't manic manifestos. They were reflections born in solitude. He walked, he wrote, he sat in his garden and allowed himself to feel everything without the pressure to solve it all. And from that stillness came wisdom, not because he controlled life, but because he allowed it. A man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears. Stillness is what happens when you stop rehearsing disaster and begin listening to what's real. The final thing Montaigne teaches us in this part of the journey is that perfection is the enemy of peace. You will never be good enough for everyone. You will never avoid every mistake. You will never be fully understood by those who refuse to see clearly. So stop caring about being perfect. Care about being real. Say what you mean, without the need to say it flawlessly. Create what feels true, without obsessing over how it will be received. Walk into rooms, not to impress, but to be honest. Because the world doesn't need your polish. It needs your presence. And presence can only emerge once you stop caring so much about how you're perceived. Let go, and watch what happens when you do. The harder you chase something, the more it runs. Why? Because obsession creates tension. Tension creates resistance, and resistance blocks flow. You want creativity, love, insight, clarity, but you've clenched your mind so tight around outcomes that nothing can move through. You're trying to control what needs space. You're trying to calculate what needs intuition. And the result? You overthink your next move. You distrust your timing. You hesitate instead of act. But when you stop caring, really stop, you relax. And the moment you relax, everything that was stuck begins to move. Montaigne lived by this wisdom. He didn't sit down to write masterpieces. He sat down to reflect. And in letting go of the pressure to produce, he produced what endured for centuries. You don't achieve joy. You return to it by removing what's in the way. And what's in the way, mostly, yourself, your expectations, your need for everything to go right, your attachment to timelines, your fear of missing out or falling behind. But when you stop caring about how joy arrives, you start to notice that it's already here, in stillness, in simplicity, in doing something slowly and without pressure, in the freedom of not needing to perform. Montaigne wasn't obsessed with happiness. He was obsessed with truth. And in living truthfully, joy came on its own. A wise man never loses anything, he wrote, if he has himself. Because when you have yourself, you don't need constant stimulation. You don't need the world to give you permission. You're already enough. Creativity doesn't thrive in control. It thrives in permission. And when you care too much about the outcome, you kill the process. That's why some of your best ideas come when you're not trying to have one. In the shower, on a walk, in solitude. When the mind softens, when the grip loosens, the ideas arrive. Montaigne didn't write under deadlines. He wrote for the joy of understanding himself. He wrote not to explain life to others, but to explore it for himself. And because of that freedom, his thoughts still resonate 400 years later. Let that be a reminder. The moment you stop creating for validation, you create something worth remembering. When you hear surrender, you might think of giving up, losing, quitting. But Montaigne shows us something different. Surrender isn't passive, it's strategic. It means recognizing where your power ends and where trust begins. You can prepare, you can show up, you can give your best. But beyond that, you must let go. Let go of how people will respond. Let go of whether it all goes to plan. Let go of whether the timeline unfolds the way you imagined. Because when you surrender, you're not saying, "I don't care." You're saying, "I trust life more than I trust my fear." And that kind of trust? It moves mountains without forcing anything. Here's a final idea for this part. When you stop vibrating with desperation, life can finally hear you clearly. Because it's not what you say, it's the energy behind the saying. You want peace? Speak from peace. You want love? Act from self-respect, not need. You want success? Move from clarity, not fear. And all of that begins the moment you stop trying to chase what's already trying to find you. That's Montaigne's gift. He reminds us that life gets lighter when you stop performing it and simply allow it. Most manipulation doesn't come from force. It comes from emotional hooks. Guilt approval, rejection, fear of being misunderstood. People don't need to control you directly. They just need you to care too much. Care about being liked. Care about being accepted. Care about not disappointing anyone. And suddenly, you're compromising your peace to protect someone else's comfort. But when you stop caring in the right way, when you detach from the need to be seen a certain way, you become untouchable. Not cold, not distant, but rooted. Montaigne's strength came not from aggression, but from sovereignty. He wasn't ruled by guilt. He wasn't swayed by public approval. He wrote honestly, even when it contradicted popular opinion. And that's why he was free. Let's be honest. Most relationships suffer not because of too little love, but because of too much attachment, too much expectation, too much projection, too much pressure to meet unspoken needs. But when you enter a relationship with detachment, you allow the other person to be who they are, not who you need them to be. You stop clinging. You stop pleasing. You stop micromanaging their emotional experience as a way to feel safe. And suddenly, space opens. Space for authenticity. Space for growth. Space for truth. This was Montaigne's genius. He believed the best relationships were based on freedom, not control. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself, he wrote. When two people know how to belong to themselves, they can finally meet each other without illusion. You don't owe everyone an explanation. Not for your silence, not for your boundaries, not for your transformation. And yet, we spend so much energy trying to be understood. We justify our distance. We explain why we're growing. We try to make others feel okay about choices that are ours to make. But Montaigne reminds us, you are not responsible for how others interpret your truth. Your job is not to manage their perception. It's to live in alignment with your own. And when you stop caring whether they understand, you reclaim all the energy you've been spending on apologizing for who you are. That energy, it becomes presence. It becomes calm. It becomes the quiet power of someone who knows they don't have to explain what's already true. Here's a crucial point. Emotional detachment is not about shutting down. It's about choosing where you invest. It means you don't argue with people just because they want to fight. You don't chase after those who only love you when it's convenient. You don't beg for clarity from people who benefit from your confusion. And you don't engage in drama just to feel seen. Instead, you stay centered. You observe. You move with intention. Montaigne practiced this form of detachment, not as avoidance, but as discernment. He knew that some emotions are sacred, and others are distractions dressed up as urgency. And when you learn the difference, you stop giving yourself away to things that do not nourish you. This may be the hardest lesson of all. Not everything is your responsibility. It's not your job to fix everyone. It's not your duty to heal people who aren't ready. It's not your task to hold everything together just because you can. And yet, you've been carrying it. Their disappointment, their chaos, their projections, their pain. But Montaigne shows us that part of becoming whole is knowing when to release what was never yours. Lend yourself to others, he said, but give yourself to yourself. So the next time you feel that old reflex, to jump in, to smooth things over, to save someone from their lesson, pause and ask, is this mine to carry? If it's not, let it go. And watch how much lighter your life becomes when you stop caring about what you were never meant to fix. There's a strange shift that happens when you stop chasing, when you stop forcing things to happen and start allowing what's real to emerge. You begin to notice the right people stay, the wrong ones fall away, the right words come, the next steps reveal themselves, without pressure, without panic. Because when you're no longer trying to bend the world to your will, the world starts to move with you. This is the paradox Montaigne lived. He didn't seek power, yet his influence endured. He didn't scream to be heard, yet his voice echoes centuries later. He didn't chase meaning, he observed it. And from that inner stillness, his life arranged itself with elegance. Control is always about the future. It's about trying to guarantee what cannot be guaranteed, trying to protect yourself from the unknown, trying to shape how things will be instead of living how they are. But Montaigne reminds us, he who establishes his argument by noise and command shows that his reason is weak. The strongest presence is one that doesn't need the outcome to feel at peace. Because the person who masters the moment doesn't need to chase the future. They're already here, and that presence, that calm, that grounded nowness is what magnetizes life back to you. Everything you've been holding, the tension, the people-pleasing, the need to explain, the pressure to be perfect, has created a version of you that's heavy, exhausted, distant from your own essence. But what if the real you was always waiting under the performance? What if you don't need to do more? You just need to care less about what was never yours. When you let go of needing to be impressive, you become impactful. When you let go of needing to be accepted, you become free. When you let go of needing to control every detail, you make space for beauty. And in that letting go, you return. We've been taught that life rewards hustle, effort, force, performance. But life responds to alignment, to truth, to integrity. And when you're honest, deeply honest, about what matters and what doesn't, you start moving differently. You stop over-explaining. You stop overworking to earn rest. You stop saying yes out of fear. You say yes from power. You say no from peace. And that shift? That's what brings things into place, because alignment is louder than effort, and truth is more compelling than control. So now maybe it's your turn to let go of the masks, of the pressure, of the performance, of the outcome, to stop caring so much about what never really mattered. And in that quiet space between holding and releasing, to feel what it's like to breathe again, to feel what it's like to choose from center, to walk forward, not in fear, but in trust. Because as Montaigne showed us, peace isn't something you find, it's something you stop resisting. If this message softened something in you, if a part of you feels ready to let go of what no longer fits, leave a comment. What are you ready to release? What weight are you done carrying? And if you're walking this path of quiet strength, inner clarity, and deep self-trust, subscribe. This journey isn't about perfection, it's about returning. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen, but to see.